The November rain fell steadily on the train platform, creating a rhythmic pattern against the metal shelter. Claire Henderson stood beneath the overhang, checking her phone for the third time. The 6:47 to Millbrook was delayed, again. She sighed, shifting the weight of her laptop bag on her shoulder, mentally calculating whether she'd make it home in time to relieve Mrs. Patterson, her elderly neighbor who watched her twin boys after school. Claire was 39, with blonde hair she kept professionally styled despite the cost, because appearances mattered in her line of work. She wore a white blouse and gray skirt, her interview outfit, though the interview had been a disaster. The position she'd applied for, marketing director at a tech startup, had gone to someone younger, someone without the complication of two 9-year-old boys who needed her home by 6:30 every evening. She touched her wallet in her purse, feeling the familiar anxiety that had become her constant companion since the divorce. After James had left, taking most of their savings and leaving her with mortgage payments she could barely afford, every dollar had become precious. She had exactly $43 to last until Friday's paycheck from her current job, the one she was hoping to leave, the one where she'd been passed over for promotion twice because, as her boss had carefully worded it, she lacked flexibility in her schedule. The platform was nearly empty in the gray afternoon light. Most commuters had already caught earlier trains. Claire noticed only a handful of people scattered along the platform, an elderly man reading a newspaper, a teenager with headphones, and a man sitting on a bench about 20 feet away. The man looked to be in his late 30s or early 40s, with shoulder-length brown hair that was damp from the rain. He wore a simple cream-colored t-shirt and worn jeans, and even from a distance, Claire could see that his clothes were soaked through. He sat with his elbows on his knees, his head in his hands, the picture of despair. Claire tried not to stare, but something about his posture, the absolute defeat in the curve of his shoulders, tugged at her attention. She recognized that posture. She'd sat exactly that way the night James had told her he was leaving, when she'd realized she'd have to figure out how to be both parents to two little boys who didn't understand why Daddy didn't live with them anymore. The man looked up, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. His face was weathered, with lines around his eyes that spoke of hard living or hard times, or both. His gaze held a desperation that made Claire's chest tighten. She looked away quickly, uncomfortable. It wasn't her business. She had her own problems. $43 until Friday. The mortgage payment due next week that she wasn't sure how she'd cover. The boys' winter coats they'd outgrown. The car that was making a worrying sound she couldn't afford to have checked. But her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Her mother who'd passed away 2 years ago, who'd always said, "Claire, honey, we help when we can. That's what makes us human." Claire glanced back at the man. He dropped his head into his hands again. His shoulders were shaking slightly. He was crying. Before she could talk herself out of it, Claire walked over to him. "Excuse me? Are you all right?" The man looked up, startled. Up close, she could see his eyes were red-rimmed, his face pale with exhaustion or hunger, maybe both. "I'm fine," he said automatically, though clearly he wasn't. "Sorry, I'm fine." "You're soaked through," Claire said gently, "and you look like you could use some help." The man's face crumpled slightly, and for a moment Claire thought he might break down completely. I lost my wallet," he finally said, his voice rough. "I've been traveling for 3 days, trying to get home. I was sleeping at the last station and someone must have taken it while I was out. I had just enough cash to get here, but I need $10 more to get to Riverside." His voice cracked. "My daughter. She's been sick. I got the call 3 days ago, and I've been trying to get back ever since. She's 8 years old and she needs surgery, and I just need to get home to her." Claire's heart clenched. 8 years old, close to her boy's age. She imagined what it would be like if one of them was sick and she couldn't get to them. "Do you have anyone you can call?" she asked. No phone. That was in my wallet, too. He looked at her with eyes full of shame and desperation. I know how this sounds. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I swear I'm not some con artist. I'm just a father trying to get home to his little girl. Claire stood, there in the rain, aware of every reason she should walk away. The world was full of stories, full of scams. She had 2 children depending on her, and she couldn't afford to be foolish with money. $43. 10 would leave her with 33. Could she make that work until Friday? But looking at this man's face, at the raw desperation and fear in his eyes, she saw something genuine. She saw herself, or what she might have become if circumstances had been just slightly different. What's your daughter's name? Claire asked quietly. Emma, the man said, his voice breaking on the name. Emma Rose. Claire opened her purse and pulled out her wallet. Inside were 2 20s, 1 10, and 3 1s. She pulled out the $10 bill and held it out to him. For Emma Rose, she said softly. Get home to your daughter. The man stared at the money like it was a miracle. His hand shook as he reached for it. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can I get your address? I'll pay you back, I swear. No need, Claire said, though the words hurt a little, knowing what that $10 represented. Just get home safe. Be with your daughter. That's payment enough. Tears streamed down the man's face. You don't understand. You have no idea what this means. What you've just... His voice failed him completely. I'm a mother, Claire said simply. I understand more than you think. The man stood up, and for a moment, Claire thought he might hug her. Instead, he just held the $10 bill like it was made of gold, looking at her with an expression of such profound gratitude that it made her own eyes sting. What's your name? He asked. Claire. Claire Henderson. Claire Henderson, he repeated like he was memorizing it. I'll never forget this. Never. The train pulled into the station then, its brakes squealing. Claire gave him a small smile and turned toward the train car. As she boarded, she looked back once and saw him still standing there watching her, the $10 bill clutched in his hand. On the ride home, Claire felt that strange mixture of anxiety and peace. She'd just made her tight budget even tighter. But somehow she felt lighter than she had in months. 2 weeks passed. Claire's financial juggling act continued. She'd managed to stretch the $33, though it had meant the boys eating a lot of pasta and her skipping lunch several days. The mortgage had been paid barely by combining her paycheck with the last bit of savings she'd been trying not to touch. She'd almost forgotten about the man on the platform when the letter arrived. It came to her office, addressed simply to Claire Henderson with her company's name but no specific department. Her assistant had delivered it with a curious expression, clearly wondering why someone was sending handwritten letters in an age of emails. Inside was a check that made Claire's hands start to shake. It was for $50,000. Attached was a letter, written in careful handwriting, Dear Claire, 2 weeks ago you gave me $10 on a train platform. You had no reason to trust me, no reason to help, but you did. You gave me money I'm certain you needed yourself because you saw another parent in pain and your compassion outweighed your caution. I need to tell you the truth about who I am. My name is Daniel Cooper. I'm the founder of Cooper Tech Solutions. Perhaps you've heard of the company. We design software for major corporations worldwide. By most measures, I'm a wealthy man. But 2 weeks ago, I was at the lowest point of my life. You were right. My daughter, Emma, was sick. She has leukemia. I'd been away on a business trip when I got the call that she'd taken a turn for the worse. In my panic and fear, I made a series of poor decisions. I refused my assistant's help, insisted on making the journey myself, and managed to lose everything: wallet, phone, identification, at a train station somewhere in the middle of the country. For 3 days, I experienced what it's like to have nothing, to be invisible, to ask for help and be turned away, over and over. Do you know how many people I asked before you? 27. 27 people walked past me, or told me no, or looked at me like I was trying to scam them. Some of their reactions I understood. I looked terrible. I had no way to prove my identity, and street corners are full of stories. But you stopped. You listened. You looked at me and saw a father, not a potential threat or a nuisance, and you gave me money I suspect you couldn't easily afford to give. That $10 got me home. I made it to the hospital, and I was there when Emma woke up from her surgery. She's going to be okay, Claire. The surgery was successful, and her doctors are optimistic about her recovery. I got to hold my little girl's hand because you gave $10 to a stranger. I had my assistant track you down. I hope that doesn't seem intrusive. The check I've enclosed is not payment for your kindness. Kindness like yours can't be bought. This is simply my way of saying that your compassion changed my life, and I'd like to change yours if you'll let me. I also want to offer you a position at my company. Your background is in marketing, I understand, and you've been looking for opportunities that offer better work-life balance. I'm building a new marketing division, and I need someone to lead it, someone who understands what really matters, someone with the kind of character that can't be taught. The salary is competitive, the hours are reasonable, and the position comes with full benefits, including complete coverage for your son's health care and education. But more than that, I promise you'll be valued not just for your work, but for who you are. You saved me when I needed saving. Please let me do the same for you. With endless gratitude, Daniel Cooper. Claire read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she called her neighbor and asked if she could watch the boys for an extra hour. She needed to sit alone for a moment and process what had just happened. That $10, her last $10, really had just changed everything. 3 months later, Claire sat in her new office at Cooper Tech Solutions, reviewing marketing plans for the company's biggest product launch of the year. Outside her window, the city sparkled in the winter sunlight. Her boys were in an excellent after-school program, fully paid for, where they were thriving. Her mortgage was no longer keeping her up at night, and for the first time since the divorce, she felt like she could breathe. But more than any of that, she felt seen. Daniel had kept his word about the hours. She was never expected to stay late or sacrifice time with her children. And when Emma had needed another round of treatment, Daniel had been there without question, and no one had made him feel like he was less valuable for putting his daughter first. On her desk sat a framed photo. Her boys, grinning at the camera, wearing the new winter coats they'd picked out together, and beside it, a card from Emma Cooper, decorated with crayons and glitter. "Thank you for helping my daddy get home. You're my hero." Claire kept another reminder, too, a $10 bill framed behind glass hanging on her office wall. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "Never underestimate what kindness can do." Sometimes colleagues asked about it, and Claire would tell them the story. Some said she'd gotten lucky. Some said it was meant to be. Some called it a miracle. But Claire knew the truth. It wasn't luck or fate or miracles, not exactly. It was a choice. A choice to see another human being in pain and respond with compassion, even when it cost her something, even when she had her own struggles, even when every practical reason said to protect herself first. That choice, that one moment of choosing kindness over self-preservation, had rippled outward in ways she never could have imagined. It had changed Daniel's life, saved Emma's father from missing her surgery, and transformed Claire's entire world. Years later, when her boys asked her what the most important lesson she could teach them was, Claire would think back to that rainy platform, to a desperate stranger, to a choice that felt both terrifying and necessary. The most important thing, she'd tell them, is to see people. Really see them. And when you can help, even in small ways, even when it costs you something, especially then, you help. Because that's when kindness matters most. That's when it has the power to change everything. That $10 bill had bought more than a train ticket. It had bought connection, compassion, and the reminder that we're all just one bad day away from needing help ourselves. And sometimes, in giving what little we have, we receive more than we could ever imagine. Not because we expect anything in return, but because that's simply what it means to be human. To see each other, to help each other, and to remember that in the end, we're all just trying to get home to the people we love.